It is another
Welcome,
Light
everyone,
News
to Light
Radio.
News Radio,
Self-empowerment
realms
for the
of
whole human
self-empowerment.
being. The
I
place where
am
sick
Dr.
and
J,
tired
your
is
host,
no
and my
longer
most
of
amazing
oneself.
and effulgent
Featuring your
co-host
host,
is Deirdre Layton. Together, we aspire to help you empower your life. Our work is grounded spirituality, a natural awakening to know the metaphysics and spirituality of the whole human being. Light News Radio features interviews with those illuminated people, very much like the one we have today, who are walking their spiritual talk. We always hope to bring you some of the best and brightest of those people who really show that the metaphysics of our world is real, and sometimes, though we only have a vague awareness of its reality, that more and more we are understanding that our spiritual nature is not only real and viable, but absolutely true. We are your hosts, here to help you live a more self-aware, spiritually awakened life, and to offer the tools and techniques to empower your journey. Come aboard and travel the light ways with us for the next hour. And with that, hello, Deirdre. How are you?
I'm really good today, and I can certainly hear in your voice that you're still struggling with not feeling well, and I know that you've had a couple of days of downtime, so thank you for being able to Skype into the show today, because you're in San Diego enjoying some beautiful sunny weather, and I'm here in Canada, and I have to laugh.
Yesterday morning I got a free trip to the hospital, and I got to stare at my feet for the better part of the day. And so I really don't enjoy doing that so much, but that little episode is done, hopefully. And so, yeah, it's good to be in sunny San Diego. And as our listeners know, I'm in San Diego. You're in Calgary at the moment. Our producer, Nesha, is in Serbia. And our wonderful guest today also lives in San Diego. So what were you about to say there, Deirdre?
Well, I was just going to say that, no. My head's full of lots of stuff, but it's still there. It's interesting because, we've had some absolutely amazing spring weather. I mean, we were 30 degrees here Celsius last week. And
86 Fahrenheit.
I know. And then it was 10 what day did Monday, I think it was. I was telling you it was 10 degrees.
59,
and Tonight, they're calling for the 4-letter word, and it's not rain. It's not rain.
Smog.
Snow.
That's so weird. Well, our listeners may or may not know, because a lot of our listeners are in the States. And in Canada, they have a rule. And the rule is, especially like in Calgary, you do not buy any little plants or spring things in April. You wait until the big snow of May is done, and then you plant.
Nothing goes out until after the 21st of May. I mean, I have a lot of stuff in the greenhouse right now, but other than that, it's, I won't dare put it out in the garden beds until after the 21st of May. We usually get a good dump, and they're saying 20 centimeters of snow could come to the mountains in the outskirts of the city, which is about,
8 inches.
8 to 10 inches, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting day, I'm sure. Do you
think Canadian men love to measure in inches rather than in centimeters because it sounds like a bigger number?
Well, oh my God. Well, you know what? Most construction is still done in inches and pounds and things like that. But that's a great way of introducing one of our guests for today too. We've got a great show.
This is a second visit too.
It's a great visit, and it's a second visit. We have Dr. Michelle Dexter on with us today, and Michelle, you might as well jump in because I know it's going to be one of those shows. No holds radio.
Great, just the kind of show I like.
Yeah, of course. It couldn't be any other way. But, it's interesting because, your background, because we've had you on the show before, listeners, her background is in psychology and sexology, and Michelle is working with CIHS, but you're the California Institute for Human Science, but you're
Right.
also working on your own. Do you want to just give yourself a quick plug here? And because, you have to shamelessly self-promote yourself.
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So yes, I am lead faculty at the California Institute for Human Science, where I teach integrative psychology courses, including human sexuality. And I am a sexologist in private practice. And what I do there is that I use energy psychology and energy medicine in order to help people to have happy, healthy sex lives and happy, healthy love lives and love relationships. So it's a lot of fun.
That is really, really cool. Now, listeners, you may not know this, but when we had Michelle on the show last time, we didn't get a lot of airtime to go into some nitty gritties of some of the fun stuff that she does with her studies. But Michelle was recently with Dr. Jelicic, and I was there for the Friday, and we were all at the Subtle Energy Retreat in San Diego. That was about almost 3 weeks ago now. And I just wanted to point out that, some of the really coolest and minds were there presenting and talking to individuals and just taking that confusion, or they're blending the science and metaphysics together in such a way that it was amazing. It was really a lot of fun. And what were you presenting on there, Michelle?
So I presented on specifically fear, turning fear into fearlessness, because it's been my clinical experience as well as my professional and personal experience that a lot of us, myself included, sometimes has fear that is so big that it makes us sabotage the very things that we want. We sabotage getting the love that we want. We sabotage getting the sex that we want. We sabotage getting the affirmation that we want. And we end up blocking relationships or even ruining the ones that we have. Mm-hmm. So this was a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And what we specifically talked about is how fear is actually something that can be functional, that it's appropriate to be a little bit fearful. But when a person becomes too fearful, when the fear grows too big, that's where it actually stops you in your tracks. And I talked about an energy medicine technique, and it's actually both energy psychology and energy medicine. And what that is that you identify the fear story, whatever that was in your past or your current situation, and then there's a way to use the biology of the body to release that. Fear actually gets trapped. And, they say in energy psychology that your issues are in your tissues. So
wow.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. So, when stuff gets trapped at the cellular level, then obviously that's where you have to go in at the biology level, and you have to hear the mental story about what that is about, and, work with the body's biocomputer in order to release this stuff, because that's really what the body is. It's a mind-body computer, a mind-body biocomputer.
That is so cool. And when listening to you say that, it reminds me of some of the techniques that I have used with my own personal clients, and when we're working with their third chakra, and your third chakra about being in faith and having your own understanding of personal boundaries, your personal power, and understanding a lot of the different things around trust and whatnot, but taking the skin off of the onion is what I call it. And so to me, what you're doing is, when you're approaching fear, you're taking the skin off of the onion, looking at the whole picture.
Yes.
Sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. So, just to wrap up on that particular piece about turning fear into fearlessness, I think that this is something that is a really powerful technique, and I got to share a few examples, and I'll give you just two. I had a woman who was in a pretty sexless marriage for about 17 years, and her husband was threatening to divorce her. And we worked on her fears, and she came back after 10 sessions, and she said, you know what? I actually want sex with my husband, and I've never felt this way in 17 years.
How lovely.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
and then
nice
another,
is that?
yeah, isn't that wonderful? I mean, that just made my heart happy.
Sure.
And then another woman who hadn't dated in 5 years, and she was, getting into her mid-30s. She knew she wanted to marry. She knew she wanted children, but she was beginning to feel her biological clock ticking, and so she was a little panicked. And so we looked at her fears about dating, and, it turned out that she'd had some bad breakups in the past, and she was terribly afraid of being wounded again. So we worked through that, and after a few sessions, she came back and she said, I did it. I signed up on Match.com. I'm dating.
Wow.
That's
And
a big move.
it is a big move. And it's interesting because I too work with, some clients, and we've had students that have come through Dr. Jelicich's 2-year healers training program that, he's got two. Oh, I'm just going to do your own personal plug here, Richard, because you've got 2 classes coming up. One in Calgary in Camrose, Canada at the end of May, level 1 and 2, which I will be instructing for you. And then, of course, you also have a new introductory class, the 21st, I believe it is, of May in San Diego. So listeners, anyone interested in learning about yourself and learning about your chakras and even learning about your own personal fears and things, just as Michelle is talking about right now, and why you have them, it's just a great baseline for coming out and finding out who you are. And you can find more information on our website, which is www.lightnews.org. Or, of course, you can always email me at info@lightnews.org. Visit our Facebook page. But back to clients and people who live in fear. I have a couple of clients that I realize, because of things that have happened in early childhood, they have shut down on so many levels of fear of being adequate, fear of being loved or able to love or accepting. And, it really is, it's a big issue out here right now in the world, especially with all the changes that are happening. People are turning to people like yourself, Michelle, or people like Richard. They're looking deep into these ideals that they've been holding, or these belief patterns that they've been holding for so many years, and trying to find out how to let them go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the big thing, is the how to. And Michelle has, I think on the last program, correct me if I'm mistaken, I think you have 19 or 20 energy psychology or energy medicine modalities that you can access for the people who come to you for counseling. And so, having that wide of a range or a variety of techniques to access, because everybody reacts differently to different modalities in different ways. When they come to you and you have this acumen that's readily available to them, there's bound to be something that matches on some level. So I applaud you for having so many.
Oh, thank you, Richard. And just to toot my own heart a little bit, I'm actually up to 22 different modalities now.
Of course you are.
But that's what it's about. I mean, people don't realize it, but you never stop learning.
That's right.
You never stop learning. And as soon as you do, you start dying, I believe. That's just my own personal belief. But, people realize that the more that you learn and understand about yourself, the healthier your life is, the healthier your sex life is, right? Like you really learn to understand who you are, then you can share that with others so easily and readily.
But that's just it. I mean, how many people in a relationship really ask for what they would desire? I mean, not just sex, like, oh, I love to have my feet rubbed, but how many people really ask for what they desire and say what they would love to have in their life? I think that's something we are all working on, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, Richard, I just have to chime in here and say, that's something that my colleagues and I talk about a lot. And it makes me so sad when I see couples who have been together 20, 30, even 40 years, and they've never had those types of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And as we get back to the word that we used earlier on in the show, it comes from the fear base.
Yes.
It comes from fear of rejection. And, It's interesting because I've done some reading, and fear really is a cry for love.
Yes.
When you look at fear in its simplest form, all it is a cry for love. It's finding out how to tap into that, and what works best for you. And so, Michelle, how would people reach you if they want to tap into letting go of their fears around their personal life and what's going on, not just in the bedroom but outside of the bedroom?
And
Absolutely.
that you don't just work in San Diego, but you can also work remotely as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if people want to reach me, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is www.drmichelledexter.com, and that's Dexter just like the TV show.
Okay. Sure.
When you said that earlier, I just about died because Dexter and that TV show is a little out there.
Yes, that is true, but people know who he is.
Once you get to know Michelle, she's a little out there too. But we happened to have a delightful dinner with her and one of her friends. We met last Friday night, I think it was, and we just had one of those conversations that just has a life of its own. We found ourselves talking about 2 hours about anything and everything. So, you listeners will find Michelle very endearing and very, very soothing and easy to talk to, very understanding. And those types of qualities, just because you get a degree in counseling or you become a psychologist does not make you the most approachable person on the planet. And Michelle has that earthiness, and I don't mind flattering her because I don't patronize. I just think that she has those qualities. They're very approachable. She certainly has the academic acumen, but also the spiritual, or if you like, the intuitive insight to get to what's going on with you.
Thank you.
Well, it's the truth, right? I mean, yeah. So, but it's interesting. I wanted to show our listeners, hopefully between the two of you, on how these fears and how the fear base of realities going on right now with regards to family dynamics, work, everything else, and how that relates to the chakras. Because I know, Michelle, that you are teaching a degree level program on the chakras at the California Institute of Human Science. And of course, Richard has written his book, Psychology of the Chakras. And so it would be really nice to have a discussion between the two of you a little bit about how the fear is based and in the chakras and how to help move it along.
Yes, absolutely. Deirdre, I've been doing some research lately on interviewing people about what is healthy sexuality. And one of the hallmarks is that people say healthy sexuality is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, people talk about it because these are self-identified people who have healthy sexuality. And so I was really interested in that because there's really no literature out there. I mean, the literature that exists says stuff like, get yourself an STI check. I'm like, well, that's not the whole picture.
No.
Yeah, but it really is kind of the antithesis, of what we see in the second chakra, when there's that fear. So just for comparison and contrast, when the second chakra is balanced, when it's whole, when it's flowing, when it's open to receive the appropriate things, of course. When the energy is flowing the way that it should, that's, what healthy sexuality looks like to me in the second chakra. And then that's outpictured, with feelings of joy and connection and pleasure and all that. Intimacy, that's a big one. But when the second chakra is blocked, or dark or shadowed, the energy is stagnant or not moving or moving backwards, that's where I see it outpicturing in fear. And then, of course, all of the other, symptoms that come from fear, like I don't feel safe. I feel too vulnerable. I feel overwhelmed, and so then people become shut down. Sometimes it manifests in physical sexual dysfunction, or people just isolate. I see so many people, who are just isolating for years and years and years. They want relationships, but they're just not happening.
Right.
Indeed, and that happens a lot. There's an endemic in Japan, and it's called hikikomori, and it's where there's people who actually isolate themselves for 6 months at a time. They never even leave their house because they're so overwhelmed and inundated with all this sensory and psychological information that's out there. And so, and I've seen, for me, the second chakra, of course, represents creativity, abundance, but also sexuality. And I think that, because of the movement of what is gender today and what is gender identity, that the sexuality itself has gone beyond the bounds of your typical male and female, what it is to be a male, what it is to be a female. So I think that, the average person today who confronts having a relationship with all of these expanded horizons of what sexuality and intimacy is looking for some kind of a foundation to where that second chakra can be open in a very holistic way that relates to their consciousness being grounded, centered, focused, healthy. And I think that's where, people like yourself and my teachings come in, is that, we look at fear as something that comes up as a tool. And we're supposed to say, well, fear is actually a healthy thing. But sometimes when the teacher says that, you just want to smack them, because if you're the one going through that, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a good and healthy thing. But I think the fear is something that motivates us to find the solution. And the second chakra is so beautiful in its ability to infinitely create any alternative or solution. And to me, the access of the second chakra is a word called faith, because the faith transcends what we think we know. This is an open space for you to jump in, Michelle, because this
great.
is your interview.
Well, thank you. I was just reflecting on what you were saying, and I was thinking, yes, absolutely, Richard is so right that fear, can be an impetus, it can be a motivator. And yet in my personal and professional experience, I've seen so many times where the fear gets so big that it actually goes into phobic space.
Wow.
And I'm not talking about what we typically talk about phobias in regular psychology or conventional psychology, where people are afraid of the color yellow or water or things like that. I'm actually talking about what we call in energy psychology subtle phobias. And they are exactly that. They are so subtle that you don't realize that you have them.
Yes.
They're unconscious. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that those subtle phobias really hold you back because they go to really extreme places. They go to the extreme place of that at the end of that story, that whatever it is you're telling yourself, like I'm afraid to date, that they go to such an extreme at the end of the story, something like I'm afraid to date, I'm afraid I'll be rejected, and then if I'm rejected, I'll die, or or I'll be miserable for the rest of my life.
Yes, I'll never find anybody that'll ever love me. Yes.
There's nobody out there for me.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, and so that fear story is what's out picturing in your life, right? That I'm just going to be miserable and lonely, and I'm going to be a dried up old woman with cats. I think I've heard that one.
Sorry, that's funny, Michelle.
Sorry, listeners. Well, this is No Holds Radio.
No, that was a good one. Yep.
Yeah.
That was good.
But it's true. If people aren't able to embrace themselves and learn to love themselves, forgive themselves, have faith in themselves, then they'll get stuck in that vicious circle. They won't get out of that circle. So, working with individuals to help them to get through that, what are some of the skills that you would use to help them break those cycles?
Well, I think there's two things that make energy psychology really great. In the field of psychology, and particularly counseling and therapy, for a long time, we've just used insight talk therapy, which is fabulous and wonderful, and I can't say enough good about it. So we need to use that, number one, so that we can understand the story. But number two, we need to do some digging. Deirdre, like you said, we have to kind of peel the layers of the onion. We've got to get into that subconscious mind. And some people say, oh, the subconscious mind is so hard to access. And I would say, no, actually, it's not. It's in there, so therefore it's accessible. And so,
Yes.
if we just learn to get quiet, and I have some good tools for that, just, learning to access the unconscious mind, and then we can hear the unconscious story, and then we can change it. This is what I'm so excited about in the field of energy psychology right now, is that we know how to change the mind. We know how to transform these limiting beliefs, like I'm going to be, old and alone and nobody will love me, into affirming and powerful beliefs, such as there is a person out there for me. I am a good person. I am okay regardless of whether I am partnered or not. I have value. Things of that nature. And then that is what outpictures in your life. And that's, the exciting part. I had a client who came in yesterday, and I've only been seeing her for a little while now. I want to say about 4 or 5 sessions. And when she first came to me, she had herself in a situation with what she called her unboyfriend. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What's an unboyfriend? Well, it turned out that this was a man that she's been sleeping with, but there was no commitment whatsoever. And she wanted more. And, so we peeled the layers of the onion. We looked at what was going on subconsciously. And wouldn't you know it, that the big thing that was really holding her back is that she'd had a broken engagement. And that was really hurtful for her, because when it all came to the end, that ex-fiance of hers said some really cruel things.
Oh, right. Wow.
So she took on some negative ideas about her body and about how unattractive she was. He had said something like, nobody will ever want to sleep with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And now if she'd been in a healthy mindset when she ended that relationship, or when the two of them decided it was over, would those comments be as detrimental as they were?
Well, I think they probably would not have been, because I have to tell you that I've been doing this work on myself for a long time now, many years. And what I've noticed is that I'm stronger. And so in the past, when people used to say things to me that were hurtful, I would just, be just completely blown out of the water. Like, oh my gosh, just an aching, and now I can look at it more objectively, and I can look at it and I can say, is that more about them, or is there something I really need to address?
Right.
And if it's about me,
but I want to keep this in context of Light News Radio, which means to our listeners, you're not just mentally stronger. Although Yogananda talks about mental endurance and perseverance, you're more awakened.
Yes.
And when the chakras begin to awaken, the inner wisdom comes forth. Our listeners should watch a video called Yogis of Tibet, where the yogi says you can have knowledge and the academic experience and know the terms, but once you have the spiritual experience, you have awakened your wisdom. So what I want our listeners to understand, and again, I don't patronize, but I can see pretty well sometimes, is that the work that Michelle has done is inner work, and an awakening, an awakening that comes, that is non-dual, that is non-linear, has nothing to do with time, but it has to do with consciousness. And there's an emanation of consciousness that comes from the chakra centers that is facilitated by their awakening. And when they awaken, that knowledge goes to an entirely different level. So for Michelle to say, well, I've been working on this for years, wasn't just PMAs, positive mental affirmations, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. There was actually the inner work to awaken. And then that also radiates through the 95% that's not verbal or physical to the people she works with. They take a psychic relationship to what she's chosen to represent as more awakened. And that's where, in my opinion, most of the healing actually happens.
The little bit gets stuck to the funnel, as you would say.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And I'm really happy to be in that space. For the people who come to see me, I'm so honored that they choose to work with me. And for that particular woman who had the unboyfriend, just in this short amount of time, that man has now become her boyfriend, and now she's entertaining the possibility that perhaps that they could make a lifetime commitment to each other. So I'm just overjoyed for her, and for anybody else who gets to make those transformations.
That is amazing, because it takes a lot of work, and
It
it
does.
takes someone being open to the sacred feminine, allowing themselves
Yeah.
to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
And, this is the era. This is the era of people learning to be vulnerable. We have had a society up until now that, has been a lot of push, 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 and a lot of male energy. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's time to be vulnerable. It's time to
Yes.
look at who we are, and not only to accept who we are, but embrace who we are.
Absolutely. There's let me start that over. There's so much power in being willing to be vulnerable,
Right.
and what I say, to tell the truth of your inner experience.
Mhm.
It's so easy to hide behind, like, oh, that's not going to be acceptable, or, oh, I just want to avoid a fight, but then underneath the surface, the resentment is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I wonder how many breakups and how many divorces could be prevented if people would simply learn to tell the truth of their inner experience, even though it's scary.
Many
Right.
years ago, I heard that the emotion leaves first, then the mind leaves, then the body finally leaves the relationship. And so now I think it's the consciousness first that's not addressed, and then it
Yeah.
exhibits in the emotions and so forth. And there's that progression.
I have to totally agree. Being, in my second marriage, my first marriage was one of there was types of abuse in that marriage, and I remember when my second daughter was born, and the doctor said, "Oh, with the next one, since she was delivered in an hour and a half, that you really will want to be closer to the hospital." And I said, "There won't be another one." And I remember it so clearly. And he said, "Well, why?" And I said, "Because I'm not having any more children with this man."
Mm.
And, I didn't dawn on that until almost 6 years later when we split up. But I had already made my mind up, and I just wasn't paying attention. And I think in a lot of ways people do that people deeply understand what's going on, but they don't recognize it or listen to what is being said to them, even in their own body, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of times we just tend to ignore or procrastinate or hope that one day it'll magically change or get better without ever really addressing it. But a lot of times we don't know exactly what to do. And imagine how many times, the three of us are here talking. How many times have you and I been sick? Like we're sick in bed and the medicine is right over there, or the laser light you could use, or this or that, and we don't get up and go get it. And it's not because we don't want to. It's because sometimes we just don't think about that it's right there. And nowadays there's so much help that is out there for us. Things like Light News Radio now exist to show people, look, this is what you can do about it. And here's one of the hows today that you can go about doing it.
Yes. And
So,
go on.
I was just going to say absolutely. And, and there's so many tools that are available, and so many things that are so simple to do. One of the things that I like to teach all of my clients and all of my students is a very simple pose that actually helps to get brain blood flow back to the proper regions of the brain, and also helps to calm stress, and is simply slapping one hand across your forehead and slapping the other hand across the back of your head, across your occipital, which is right above the bone at the top of your neck.
Now, are you saying slapping, or are you saying?
No, okay, so I'm being facetious here. But, so gently placing one hand across the forehead.
I'm envisioning 2x4s.
Calling us next week, say, "Oh yeah, I listen to Light News Radio. When I slap myself across the head fore and after, I feel so much better."
I slap myself silly. Yeah. So yes, listeners, we needed clarity on that one.
Yes,
so
just take us through that one more time, Dr. Dexter.
Ever so gently. Treating yourself with great love and care and compassion.
Yes.
Yes, one hand on the forehead, one hand on the back of the head. And simply holding that pose for 30 seconds, even a minute. And that, like I said, is just, it's wonderful for the biology of the body. It just calms it right down. So if you're having a stressful moment, or you're upset, or you're feeling fearful or angry, that can do wonders.
Now, does it make a difference if you're left or right-handed?
It does not.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
that's good to know. So just the palm of your hand across your forehead, and the palm of the hand across the little bulge at the back of at the joining of the skull to the spine. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, they've done some studies where I believe, if I remember correctly, that they were able to show that the brain blood flow goes back into the prefrontal cortex, which of course is that rational part of ourselves. And of course, when we're being terribly emotional, the brain blood flow is reduced in that region. So we've got to get the brain blood flow back to that region so that we can actually look at our emotions rationally and say, oh, okay, all right, I got a handle on this, rather than just completely flying off the handle.
Right. And that is a very helpful tool, because, today, with society being the way it is and so rushed, people are put into that fight or flight or fright mode without even realizing it. Watching TV sometimes really stirs up emotions with people, and
very much so.
And I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of the programs, I think, are written specifically to stir up emotions that a lot of people really don't need to stir up.
And they're made to be shocking, and they're made to be irritating and overstimulating. And after a while, we become desensitized. So then somebody wants to put on an even more shocking and exclusive program. I mean, where does it all end?
Right. And that's upsetting to me too. Because I look about this concept of modeling, and so TV is, very much a source of modeling of acceptable behavior,
right.
And so I look at this and I think, well, how are we supposed to learn about how to be vulnerable with each other, how to be intimate with each other, how to disclose with one another, how to be, really kind to one another when this is the type of stuff that's out there?
Right. Yeah. You're taught from an early age. I mean, I remember watching soaps in the 70s. You're taught in an early age, it's okay to run around and cheat on people and lie to people and, do things behind their back. And it's okay. And it's okay to, hold yourself back and hold yourself, it's not okay. And that's society kind of instills that into what's going on, even in our schools.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was on a television program as a guest called That Yin Yang Thing, and they were using Eastern and Western psychology and methods to help people get along. These two business partners, and I was invited onto this program to do flower readings for these two women. So, we've got this whole studio setup thing going on, and about halfway through it, we take a break, and the producer comes over to me and whispers to me, "Say something shocking to them." Oh. And I thought, I am in the wrong place. I am in the wrong.
Wow.
I wasn't about to do that to these women who were trying to resolve their differences, right? But they were looking for ratings.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
The sheer shock level stimulation.
Absolutely.
Well, wow. It's interesting because earlier we were talking about balance and different ways. And Richard, you've just done a silent meditation with, oh my goodness, my brain just went absolutely.
Oh, the guided imagery meditation to sacred geometry.
Thank you.
With Jonathan Quinton.
Yes. You just did that in Encinitas, and you offer more of those. So listeners, you're welcome to go online to our website at www.lightnews.org and look at the workshops that Dr. Jelicic offers, because he offers workshops that help you find balance in your life and help you to really understand who you are. And so when we're talking today's show about understanding who we are, and we have Michelle Dexter on, listeners, if you're just tuning in, that is talking about our own sexual power, but also in a very sacred way, and how we can help others and help ourselves develop it in a safe way.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if Michelle and I could put a program together, a workshop called Sex and the Chakras.
Oh, I would
Oh,
love that.
I think that would be,
You know?
I think you'd be a house sellout, to tell you the truth. Hey, listeners, give us feedback on that. Send me a text or, through Facebook, or reach us on Twitter, or even email me at info@lightnews.org. What you think about Richard and Michelle getting together and doing a workshop on the chakras, and what did you call it, sir?
Sex and the chakras, or chakras and sexuality, something on that order.
Yeah,
I
or
think
maybe,
that
healthy chakras or chakras with healthy sexuality, something along those lines. I like that.
Yeah.
healthy chakras, healthy sex life.
Oh, I like that. That works better. Yeah.
So what are you teaching now, Michelle, at the California Institute of Human Science?
Big shocker, psychology of the chakras.
You're almost halfway through, right?
About halfway through. Yeah. So each week we are working on learning about each chakra, and we're learning about how to make it healthier. So obviously every chakra has stories, that make it weaker. And so we look at those and look at what we need to clean up. So one thing I wanted to say, just to circle back before I get back to talking more about chakras, was that, in neurolinguistic programming, that's considered the psychology of success. And one of the things that they say is that you really should choose good models. So if you're looking for happy, healthy love lives and happy, healthy sex relationships, look for people in your life who can model that for you and see what they do and try to emulate them.
Excellent idea.
Thank you.
That is, yes.
Thanks. But as for the class, it turns out, like I said, that every single chakra has, some issues that get in the way. And it turns out that one of the big issues for the second chakra, which is obviously where all your sex organs are, is boundary issues. And broken boundaries are a big deal. It turns out that we all kind of have an intuitive sense about what those boundaries are, but in terms of energy, that's an even bigger deal that we need to understand, because when we have broken energy boundaries, we are open to energy attack. And what I mean by that is that people can really, really wound us. So there's general boundaries, of course, and then, of course, there's sexual boundaries. And I see this all the time. I see so many people who have had some type of sexual assault or some sexual inappropriate behavior that they've experienced, and it's broken their sexual boundaries. And then once that happens, because there's a hole in the boundary, then it means that other people are going to come in and attack them even worse.
They've left themselves vulnerable for that.
Yes, they have.
That is a great subject to bring up for our listeners too, because it's just sounded like something you've really given a lot of thought to, that you feel is crucial for our listeners to know.
Yes, I do feel that way, because I hear these horror stories about how maybe there was just, some inappropriate sexual touching in junior high that then led to getting raped in college,
Right.
and now we've got a big mess to clean up.
Right.
So, it turns out that we've got some great protocols in energy psychology for putting the plugs, to plugging the holes to make boundaries whole again. And so it turns out that we just need to go back and we need to look at the traumatic situations that broke the boundary in the first place. And we need to come to peace with that. So we look at a number of things. We have some emotional release techniques to release, the fear and the hurt and the pain and the sorrow and the grief and whatever else. And then any limiting decisions, that's huge. When we are traumatized, we actually make unconscious limiting decisions.
Right.
And, and then that's what outpictures in your life, right? So it's so important to go back and to access those unconscious limiting decisions that happened as a result of that trauma and to clean those up and transform them. So, for example, somebody who's been sexually traumatized, maybe they made an unconscious decision, something like, well, I'm not worthy of having my body be protected, so anybody can just do anything they want with it.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we have to clean that up, and transform that into my body is worthy of protection. My body is sacred. My body is my own.
So as a trained psychologist, you would look for markers that would indicate that's the direction, that's what they're really revealing to you. That's how you're zeroing in on the essence of what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm really interested in meeting people's goals. I mean, I really do believe in a co-creative process. And so when a client comes to me, I want to hear what they want. And so if they say something like, I want to have a more robust sex life, or I want to date again, or I want more intimacy, whatever it is, we'll put that goal that they've created on the chopping block. And then we'll systematically go through and we will figure out what are all the issues that are blocking them from having it. And we'll go through each issue one by one and we'll clean it up and we'll transform it so that at the end they can be 100% in line with that issue at their body level, meaning their biology, their unconscious level, their conscious level, their conscious mind, their energy level, and their souls or spirits, whatever word you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, are you going to be doing any public events such as you did at the Subtle Energy Retreat in the next little while?
I am. May 28th, I have a workshop coming up with my colleague, Dr. Corey Probst, and it's called Raising Your Relationship Metabolism.
Where's that going to be?
Yeah.
That's going to be in Mira Mesa in San Diego. And all the information is on my website.
May 28th is a Saturday or Sunday?
It's a Saturday.
Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's going to be from 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. on the 28th. And you can go to my website and look at the upcoming events page, and there's a link right there where you can sign up and prepay.
And Mira Mesa is in San Diego.
Yes.
Give us your website again there, my dear.
www.drmichelledexter.com.
Great.
That's with 3 W's, right?
Yes.
You could put in 2, but you might not like the outcome.
Oh boy. And Michelle is spelt with 2 L's, everyone. Yes. Oh, what a great show today. You know, it's always a joy to have people on our show that actually walk their talk. And, you know, listening to how your practice is and what you do on a day-to-day basis really, I think, is helpful to our listeners. And what would you give them as a tool for their tool belt, you know, to take away at this time? What would you give them as a saying or something to help them?
Well, I think that this sounds so trite, so you're going to have to forgive me, but I really do believe this, and that is that if there was a mantra or something, and that would be "I am love," because that's really what we all are. Yeah. So just know that. You know, like Richard, I do some intuitive readings for people sometimes, and when I drop in and I get into that space, particularly when I do an angel reading or something like that, the first message I always get is you are loved. And I have yet to come across a human that did not get that message first. So
that's lovely. That's just absolutely lovely.
That is. So one last time, how do people get a hold of you, Michelle?
www.drmichelledexter.com.
Great.
Excellent.
Wow. We're going to have you on again. This has been a lovely show once again with you, and we've got to connect off air and get you and Richard together and certainly do a workshop. Either, you know, maybe you can hold it at CIHS or somewhere else, and I think that this would be a wonderful, wonderful event. So listeners, do let us know about what you think about Richard and Michelle getting together to do a workshop, and we'll get on that. So that being said, how you feeling now, Richard?
Well, you know, my energy level is not its usual amped up and ready to go light news radio type of stuff, but I'm doing okay. Just kind of hanging in there. You know, what's really interesting for me is I've been talking since the 90s about the dawn of the sacred feminine. And of course, as you know, it's being embodied by women more and more. And I was talking to my sister this morning about, do you realize it's only been 100 years since women in this country were given the right to vote? in an
Yeah.
election,
Yeah.
in an election, and how far and how fast that we've come. So I just marvel, like when I hear the two of you coming and you embody that sacred feminine principle and also came in biologically as women. I think it's just something that is so needed, that feminine principle of yielding to your power that I'm such a big proponent of. Having seen it from the 90s and seeing it flourishing today is so refreshing. And I credit our listeners as being fairly discerning, that when they listen to something like Light News Radio and they hear the two of you talking, they realize that you really are walking your talk. This is not a vacuum-filled space that we're just amping out platitudes, latitudes, and gratitudes. That this is the real deal, and that the listeners, being discerning, will take this to heart and recognize all the solutions they seek are really within them if they yield to them. And people like you two, Deirdre and Michelle, are the ones that can facilitate the release of that sacred power that everybody has. I admire you both very, very much. I feel very fortunate that we can have a vehicle like this to do this work.
Well, I thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just, yeah. I have a hard time with those types of things.
Well, it needs to be
so
said.
I'll say thank you. Yeah, I know. That's just me. But we've got so much more to offer you listeners over the next course, and unfortunately I haven't pulled up my calendar, but I know that we have a Dr. Masaru Kako coming next time we get together on Light News Radio. And if you feel that you would like to be a guest on our show, please let us know at info@lightnews.org, because we're always looking for people that really walk their talk and that are very out there to help the individual to grow on their own spiritual path, whichever that might be. And, it's interesting because I hold practice on Monday, every second and fourth Monday of the month for Dr. Jelicich's students. And this past Monday, we had a lot of people searching, want to come and have some energy work done and energy balancing done. And it was interesting because a lot of the people, I said to them, listen to our show this week, because our show, I think, is really going to help you.
Relevant.
So it will be interesting to see how many of them actually did tune in. So you can find these shows, of course, on Spreaker. We will post the show after we're finished today on our Facebook page, and the link will be sent to Michelle to be able to do what she would like to do with it. And, there's other shows you can go back and listen to. So please go take a look, even on our website at www.lightnews.org, or visit Michelle's site at dr.michelledexter.com.
Really
So,
well done,
Richard.
Dee. Very professional.
Oh, well, I'm working on it, hey?
Yeah, hey.
You have, on the 21st, like I said, you have a new introductory class starting for people interested in learning the basics about chakras and coming out, meeting you, and wanting to know what your program is all about. That will run all day Saturday the 21st and Sunday the 22nd in La Mesa, California. Just in the San Diego area there. And you can, of course, register through me at info@lightnews.org. Personal investment is $450 for the full weekend, but that includes all of your materials and recordings of all of the lectures as well. And then I will be teaching the same class the following weekend, the 28th and the 29th, in Camrose, Alberta, just east of Edmonton and north of Red Deer. So please, those that are interested, come out, and we would love to see you and share some knowledge with you.
Really, really well done, Dee. And usually, listeners, if this is your first time listening to Light News Radio, Deirdre announces all of the scheduling that we have, and usually there is so much that it takes us 10 minutes to get through part of it. Not to be boring to you, but usually we have so many things, as Deirdre says, on the go that, we apportion a part of the latter part of the show so that we can talk about what's coming up. And the point being is, we have manifested through Light News in Canada and in the U.S. Many ways that you can work, whether it's through workshops, lectures, seminars, practice sessions, coming to when the healers are practicing and getting some free energy work as well. So this is an ongoing thing. Our Light News website is just looking fabulous. So there's a lot of things you can go to. There's a blog site there to catch up on some reading. There's a calendar. There's all kinds of things that are there for you, dear listeners, that we hope that you'll take advantage of.
And it's updated on a regular basis. And one nice thing about our new calendar on our website is that if you click on the sort button, you can look at a specific area to see if there's something coming up in your area. So, there's lots of really good features out there. But I just wanted to say we've got some events that will be coming up in the fall and, of course, in the early spring. We have 2 spots left now for our Sedona trip. And you can go to our website and look up Journeys of the Sacred Heart. And that is our meditation retreat in Sedona that we offer in September. And this will be our 2nd annual retreat. And then in the spring, we have in April, you and Lisa Steeles will be on your way to Costa Rica. And what will you be doing in Costa Rica? I believe it's April 2017.
Yeah, it's April of next year, and we're going to be doing a Kundalini yoga retreat and the chakras as well. So I'll be lecturing about the chakras, doing experiential exercises. Lisa Steeles and another teacher, Cecile, will be actually teaching Kundalini yoga for the Blue Spirit Retreat in Costa Rica, which is in a sea turtle preserve. It's bordered on the Pacific Ocean on the west, and it's just an ideal, one of the top 5 yoga locations on the planet. And so we did this in December. We liked it so much. We're going to do it again next April, and we're very much looking forward to have another good attendance.
And you can find information on that at A Balanced Practice, spelt with an S.com, abalancedpractice.com, or Google Lisa Steeles, and it will show up. And she spells Steeles, Steels. The other items we have is in June of 2017. I am so excited for this, and I'm going to be working on it a lot over the next little while, is we will be offering a North American plant medicine workshop.
Right, the spirit of plant medicine.
And in Canada, and hopefully also in San Diego, and it will be in Calgary, Alberta. And we have some really, really cool people lined up for it, including Miguel Angel Vergara, who will be coming up from Merida, Mexico. But we have previous guests to our show, Teresa Helgeson, right, who was also at the Blue Sky Retreat and presented there. And then
a nature survivalist by the name of Christopher Nergis, who's been writing about what you can eat in the forest since about the 70s.
Yes. And then we're working on having some local people from each area come out. So here we're looking at having some of our local Aboriginal leaders come out and share some of their knowledge as well. So we're busy planning this. It will be in Canada, June 22nd through 26th, and then hopefully in San Diego from June 29th to July 2nd or 3rd. Yeah.
And check with us for more information as this evolves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have 2 minutes left. Michelle, would you like to promote yourself one more time?
Absolutely. Like I said, I have that workshop coming up May 28th at 10 a.m., Raising Your Relationship Metabolism with my colleague, Dr. Carrie Probst. And what we're going to be talking about is a mind-body approach to relationships. She's going to speak about why it's so important to support your body so that you can have a healthy emotional outlook. And I'm going to talk more about the emotional and mental side of things, and be sharing some techniques to be able to get yourself to be in a better emotional space, and giving some tools and tips, and like I said, some energy psychology techniques so that you can do emotional release. And I have to tell you, this stuff, really, really works. A lot of clients tell me, wow, I was so upset about that, and I've been upset about it for a long time, but now I just feel totally neutral about it. How did you do that? I said, well, it's the power of understanding energy psychology.
Right.
That's amazing.
And remember that this show is recorded, dear listeners. So if you're listening to it after the fact, those contact information for Michelle, please take advantage of it, especially if it resonates within you. Doesn't matter. Michelle works long distance anywhere on the planet, is accessible. Yes. And so, Deirdre and I, our passion is to help you empower your life. And that's why we have many different types of guests that come on our show who we feel are qualified to talk to you because they actually walk their talk, and it becomes self-explanatory. So that's our goal in Light News Radio, is to help you empower your life, to live a more full and productive life and a spiritually empowered one. And as always, may the principles of harmlessness and compassion be the ever constant, ever present guide of your every intention, your every thought, and your every action. So it is, so it shall be, it is done. Thank you, Deirdre, for a great show. And stay attuned, everyone.
Thank you for joining Light News Radio, where you are self-empowered for your whole being. Be sure to join us again in 2 weeks and connect with us at www.lightnews.org.